Well, hello, welcome all. If you're watching this video, you obviously were directed here because you have an Austroflamm Integra pellet stove. It doesn't matter whether it's a freestanding or an insert. Following these guidelines will help you with the maintenance and the cleaning schedule. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to use the script right out of the original manual from 1991 when the Integra was first originated and brought to us in the state of Oregon. Boy, that's really kind of dating ourselves. But what this video is going to do is we're going to help you with the maintenance schedule so that you know what to do with your stove once it is up and running. And if it is not up and running, the first thing that we always do if somebody calls us on the phone or emails us, emailing is always the best, especially during the winter months, is we ask the question, have you had your stove completely serviced and have you been keeping up on the maintenance? The reason why is because majority of the time it is a maintenance issue that creates the stove to malfunction or to start operating in a manner that is obviously leading you here now and making you unhappy. So the first thing that I will do is I will read the maintenance procedures, and this is actually a manual from the original production. And it is actually for the technicians in order to go out that once you are certified by the factory, they train you and then you follow these procedures in order to make sure that everything's done appropriately. So the first thing on the maintenance schedule, we will first talk maintenance and then we will go into cleaning. Maintenance will help you so you can eliminate the problems, and then cleaning will obviously help you resolve problems. So the first thing on the agenda is to keep your burn pot cleaned. Now, if you have not been following our adventures, we have relocated and we are in our 42-foot motor coach. So I don't have all of the materials to show you on camera, so I will be putting up pictures from our shop before we ended up leaving to help you have a description of what we're talking about. So first thing on the list is the burn pot. These burn pots are pretty much one of the main issues of airflow problems, and that is making sure that you keep these burn pot air holes cleaned out. Okay, if they plug up, then your stove will start burning rich, will start producing more creosote, and in turn will eventually plug your system up, whether it be your stove or your chimney. So, number one, keep your burn pot nice and clean, like so. Okay, so what the manual actually says is clean as needed 2 to 7 times a week. How they come up with that, I don't know. But one thing to mention is not all pellets are created equal. You have poor quality pellets, high moisture content, a lot of byproduct. They burn dirty. They do not produce high BTUs. In other words, they do not put out the same amount of heat as a high quality pellet that is a clean product, less byproducts. They have been dried and it has low moisture content. The different types of wood also determines the quality of the pellet. from fir and pine. Some are even out there using a pulpwood, which high moisture and it burns really low BTUs, very dirty. Or you have, in our part of the country, a very high quality pellet is called pack saddle. And pack saddle is a very hot burning pellet, very clean. I'm not supported by pack saddle. It's just that by doing this for 33 years, we know which pellets to burn and which pellets not to burn. So if you can find pack saddle in your area, look them up. It will be a high quality pellet that will keep your stove clean and burning efficiently. So depending on the characteristics of the pellet fuel used and operational habits of the stove owner. Next thing is the ash pan. The ash pan, which obviously when you pull your burn pot out, your ash pan comes out. Clean as needed, visually apparent. Next is the door glass. Clean as needed, usually daily. Depends on how anal you are on wanting to see the flame and not having to look through that creosote. Can be more or less frequent depending on the characteristics of the pellet fuel and the operational habits of the stove owner. I think I just said that. The heat exchange rods. The heat exchange rods, as you know, is the pull rods on the top of the stove, which you must take care in that if you are just now purchasing or obtaining a Austroflamm pellet stove, these burn rods get extremely hot after the stove has been burning for a while, and you have a tool that allows you to hook the burn rods and operate them up and down. Now, it is recommended that you do not operate the pull rods while it is hot, due to the fact that the heat exchange rods inside have a tendency to swell, and they do not recommend cleaning the stove by pulling the rods while the stove is hot. So you want to make sure that your stove is cooled down before you start cleaning behind the back firewall or the heat exchange system by pulling the rods. Okay? In other words, do not grab those pull rods when the stove is hot, because you will be tattooed. Trust me. Been there, done that. The lower cast panel. Remove and clean the heat exchange area every ton of pellets. Now that again depends on the quality of the pellet. I have had customers that obviously have obtained some pretty nasty pellets and their stove is plugged up, especially depending on, you know, the temperature that you run your stove. If you run it on low, you got a potentiometer, obviously, that you can run low all the way up to high. Now, if you have it down on low and you run it down on low most of the time, those pellets are going to have a tendency to smolder, which in turn creates more creosote. So the more often that you run it on low, the dirtier your stove's going to get, the quicker it's going to get dirty. So that's, again, all of that's going to fall into this maintenance schedule. And you know, price does not necessarily mean, in the pellet world, that if you spend $5 or I've heard even as high as over $6 now with today's wonderful economy. So it is what it is. If you're ending up burning a pellet that soots your stove up right quick, and you know that your stove is burning properly and operating the way that it's supposed to be, then you can normally get a cleaner burn with a better pellet. Okay, so the lower cast wall is, again, they're suggesting every ton of pellet. You can try it every ton, but if your stove starts acting up, do it more often. Let's see. Okay, by not cleaning out the heat exchanger, this can cause the auger not to operate because of the restricted airflow. When you take your back cast wall off, you're going to see all the creosote that is piled up on your heat exchange tubes. And those heat exchange tubes, the way that the stove operates is your convection fan. You have two fans, a combustion and a convection. Your convection fan is your room air, which draws the air into the stove and then blows the air in through those heat exchange tubes and then forces the hot air that's generated inside of the stove into the room. If they are coated heavily with creosote, the creosote will act as like an insulation barrier, and you will not get the temperatures out of the stove as you would with a clean system. So all of that creosote can take away the efficiency of the heat, which is generated by burning all of those expensive pellets. So keeping all that ash cleaned out is pretty important if you want to make sure that you're getting, you know, the bang for your buck, you know what I'm saying? So back of those heat exchange tubes, down at the very bottom, you will find with a flashlight, you will see that there are small little air ports, again, behind. When you take the cast wall off and you clean all of that creosote out, you're going to have to brush all those rods off. Look between the bars. Between the bars, you will have these little air ports that go into a horizontal exhaust channel that your combustion fan draws the creosote in and out and up the chimney. If those little air ports are not serviced and kept clean, your stove will start malfunctioning. You will start having airflow issues. Again, I could be jumping ahead here, but this is an important fact, and this is one that a lot of people overlook. They feel as though that they're going to get in there, they're going to clean out the ash, and they're going to brush off the heat exchange tubes, and they're good to go. If you forget to clean those air ports, again, behind the air tubes down at the bottom, you will miss a very important step, and your stove will continue to malfunction if that is an underlying problem. So once those are cleaned out, you've cleaned your rods, you've cleaned your heat exchange tubes, you've eliminated all the creosote. Okay, the annual service. Remove the combustion motor from the cast aluminum housing. Dun, 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 dun. What do you know? I do have a lot of main parts here in our motor coach that we ship out when needed. But here is your combustion motor. Okay, see your fan in there? Ain't that a peach? Okay, this is the aluminum housing. This is bolted right to your stove. And by their instructions, they are saying take these screws out here. Bada bing, bada boom. And then this motor comes off the housing. That way you don't have to unbolt the whole housing from your stove. You can just pull this out. And then you can service the inside of the housing and so forth without having to take this off and disconnect it from your chimney pipe. That's the reason why they make it to where you can take the motor off of here and you don't have to mess with your chimney system. So once this is off, and don't get confused, this is for a Integra 2. We do have the proper wiring and fans for the Integra 1. Exact same motor, exact same housing, just different wiring diagram. We got both of them. Other thing that I have to bring up is in the combustion fan, you have a snap disc. Okay, this is your low limit snap disc. What this does is it is a proof of fire, which means that it has to heat up within a short time frame. Otherwise, your stove will shut down because it will not create a continuous circuit. If it does not reach 120 degrees, your stove will shut down and it will say it's misfiring. Okay, so then you have to shut it off and you're going to have to restart it. The big deal with this snap disc is you have to make sure that when you pull the motor off, you reach into the housing and you brush off the inside of this snap disc. Otherwise, a heavy creosote buildup will act as an insulator, and it can start telling your stove that it's not heating up when it actually should be, you know, if it has a clean snap disc. So just make sure that when your motor is off, that you clean the inside of this snap disc, and that way you know that you have, you know, done your job. So also, if you look here carefully, there is a small little gasket. This little gasket must be there. If you obtain a used stove or you notice that there is no gasket, your stove potentially could start malfunctioning if it draws air into your combustion fan when it's operating. Okay, it'll start messing with the air sensor, and all of a sudden your stove's going, whoa, wait a second, we got issues. That also applies. Now let me finish up here. So if you do have a missing gasket, give us a call. We can hook you up and get you up and running. Let's talk really briefly about, now here's an air sensor. The air sensor is pretty much, like I said, very, very delicate. You do not want to be touching the computer modules, okay? Don't mess with it. You can see here that it's got 2 holes that you will notice on your stove. Go ahead and back those screws out. Unplug very carefully. Make sure that you just kind of wiggle it. Don't be pulling on it too hard when you disconnect this, due to the fact that I have seen people snap these off. That's a no-no. That means that, you know, you're going to have to ship it to us, and then we're going to have to repair it, which is not necessary if we're just very, you know, calm and just very patient in taking it off. Okay, again, taking the compressed air, just blow it all off. Down here is where you end up sensing the fresh air that comes in. So you want to make sure that you eliminate any funness among us, okay? So make sure that that's all cleaned out. Now, I kid you not, it will short out if you start handling it. And so I will just re-emphasize, don't start touching the computer board. Like I'm handling it here, you don't have to touch it. Just keep it mounted to its bracket, and when you pull it out of the fresh air tube, do not break this part. Do not drag it on the metal tube. Okay? As you can see here, there is a gasket under this bracket. This gasket is very important because you do not want fresh air entering the fresh air tube underneath this bracket. Okay, it's supposed to only enter by bypassing the air sensor through the back of the stove. So we have this gasket right here. Give us a call. We'll sell you a foot of it. Okay, we got to sell it by the foot. Can't sell it by 4 inches. So we'll sell you a foot. Get her done. Let's see, clean the hopper and the auger pathway. Do this monthly if dumping pellets directly from the bag into the hopper. One thing that you will find is different manufacturers don't necessarily sift their pellets. They will dump their sawdust shavings and everything in with the pellets, which then, you know, creates for a dirty burn in your stove. So there are hopper pellet sifters out there on the market, or you can make your own by getting yourself a small little screen, putting it over a, you know, a bucket or something to that, dump your pellets in. The screen has to be big enough for the sawdust to fall through, but the pellets will not. That's a good way to clean your pellets to where you're not going to be, you know, having to mess around with them. Okay, if a customer uses a pellet dispenser that removes the sawdust, as it dispenses, do this procedure at the time of service. Making sure that your hopper is spanky clean is the definite way to make sure that everything's dialed. Now, one thing that I did not bring up is when you drop the back firewall of the stove, you will have an insulation board that is on the back of the lower cast firewall. For all of you that don't know, this insulation board is very important to maintain on your stove. When you drop your back firewall, and if you find that this is deteriorated, cracked, or missing, you will start having air code problems. This is supposed to be insulated. Problem is, you end up producing too much heat through this back firewall. You're going to start tripping your high limit switch, which then your stove's going to keep shutting down on you. Very easy fix. If you find that you need one, give us a call. Got them in stock. All you got to do is pop the clips here and here. Take off the old, put on the new, put the clips back on. Just be careful when you're taking the clips off. They do break. If they do break, let us know. We got them. But if you do find in taking that cast firewall off that board is missing, cracked, heavily deteriorated, give us a call. We do have brand new ones in stock. We can hook you up. But it is important that I did throw that in there because that is a big problem. Opening and closing your door. You do not want ash and debris to be coating the door gasket, which is your seal, which is a very important seal on the stove. Due to the fact that this stove is put together and it operates under negative pressure and all the parameters are set accordingly. Now, if any gasket on this stove is heavily deteriorated or is missing, then your stove will not function the way that it was made to at the plant. So you have to make sure that your stove door gasket stays in tip-top shape. And this particular gasket is a high density gasket specifically for Austroflamm. Now here's the kits. Pretty much is the length of gasket. It comes in 8 feet. You know, you're going to find that that's a little bit more than what's necessary. And it also does come with the silicone gasket. Everything that you need in order to get the job done. There is one thing that I did not mention, and that is you have to make sure that your stove door glass, it has gasketing from the manufacturer. If you take your glass apart, you must, and I repeat this, you must put it back the way that it was designed and originally installed, due to the fact that it has a fresh air inlet across the top of the glass door. And if you do not put it back the way that it was originally manufactured, it will mess up the airflow of your stove. Your air sensor will then say, oops, we've got a problem, start shutting down. Your fans will start running high and low, and airflow problems is one of the hardest issues to diagnose. And as long as you keep your stove maintained, if you see at any point something is deteriorating, if you can just get on it, replace it with a brand new one, then your stove's going to keep running the way that it's supposed to run. But one of the number one issues is people get really particular about keeping that glass clean. So some of you out there will start unbolting the glass, and you'll see some brackets in there that holds the glass on to where you want to get it all nice and shiny and beautiful again. But then you put it together wrong. Now the gasketing, you will see it's like a fiberglass rope, and it's a highly condensed fiberglass. It is not like this. They are flat little pieces that must be in place, otherwise your stove will draw air into your firebox, and again, you will have more airflow issues. So what I suggest is take a picture of the inside of your door before you take the glass off. Of how the gasketing was installed. That way you know to put it back exactly in that same manner. I do this all the time. I'm getting old. I'm heading towards 60. So, you know what? My memory is about as good as my old dog. Give us a call. We got the gasket. Okay, we can hook you up. Anything that has to do with Austroflamm from the moment they were brought to Oregon. Matter of fact, just a little no is we're actually personal friends with the designer of the Integra that was brought over to the States. His name's Conrad. Wonderful guy, great friend. We were blessed to meet him. We actually helped Conrad in being one of the first to introduce Integra to the United States. And we helped him introduce the Integra1, plus the biomass unit, which some call the Integra3, which you can burn corn, cherry pits, walnut shells, and the way that you know that you have an Integra1 compared to an Integra3 is an Integra3 has a square, rectangular stainless steel burn pot. This stove was designed with different parameters to where you could burn, not only pellets, you could burn, like I said, all of the other things that I mentioned, which is their biomass unit. Biomass unit only hung around for a short time, and then it evolved into eventually the RIKA Integra2. Which is the high-tech version. Now, Integra1, awesome stove. I can literally say that this is one of the only stoves that have gained the reputation due to the quality of manufacturing and satisfaction throughout the years. Anyhow, Austroflamm is a stove that once you obtain an Integra, as long as we can foresee, unless all of a sudden things get so haywire that the manufacturing of all the parts completely stops, this stove will outlast all of us. All you have to do is just keep it maintenanced and keep it running, because the body, the door, everything is built like a tank, and it is very efficient. All of the parts, we have most of the parts in stock due to all of the new issues in society today, and due to shipping from Austria. A lot of parts are actually being hung out to port, literally stuck out on boats for months on end. And a lot of these parts we are actually trying to have manufactured here in the United States now. Like the burn pots. We actually make these ourselves. When we purchased the distributorship for Austroflamm from Lucky's Distributing in Portland, Oregon, we got the molds. And so because there is such shipping issues, we don't have time to wait. We just make our own, and we did find, a manufacturer to pour them for us, which, a pot is a pot is a pot. And our pots are very well priced. We have them in stock, and if you need one, give us a call. Now, burn pots, literally, they can take heavy abuse. These will, over time, and I'm talking, unless you're using a pellet that's got a high moisture content, these things will last 10 plus years easy, no problem. Obviously, the heating and the chilling of it has a tendency to break down the molecular structure of the metal, but if you don't add moisture to it, these will last, so long you're definitely going to feel like you got your money's worth. But if by chance, one of these little walls here between the holes starts, rotting out, and as long as your pellets aren't falling through, it's still going to allow the oxygen through, and, you should be just fine. Now, the Integra1 was originally designed, the very first one had a user board that had 2 on-off switches. That is like the prehistoric model, the very, very first model. And then the second year, they eliminated the double switch, and they went to a single on-off switch with a potentiometer, which 99% of you have that model. But in the first years of the Integra being made, there was no automatic igniter system. You had to manually light them with a fire gel and a lighter, keep the door kind of cracked open. And there's a lot of you out there that still have not upgraded your system to an auto light stove, which we do. And we can actually sell you the igniter systems and help you install them if you, feel as though that you have a mechanical ability. Not just anybody can do it, because you do have to, know your way around with a wrench and a screwdriver and being able to do some wiring. But, if you ever had a stove that you wanted from a manual and you're just like, man, I'm never getting rid of this stove, but I would like it automatic. I have people that ship me their stove. I install the igniters, ship them back to you, and then all you have to do at that point is just turn it on. Bada bing, boom, bam. It lights itself. You never have to mess around with fire gel or starter pellets, and you know what? But no big deal. That's just an upgrade. These stoves were, again, originally made without the igniter. So these burn pots, again, no need to replace them unless they're literally falling apart. And here's the igniter hole right here, that if you do by chance have a upgrade, then you want to make sure that this hole right here on the side stays unblocked. Otherwise, the heat will not penetrate through this port and ignite your pellets. So if you do have an upgraded Integra1 and it's misfiring, it could be due to this port being blocked. But again, quality of pellets always fall back to the quality of pellet, because a high moisture content pellet is harder to start with an auto igniter, and you always got to look at that. So that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is your maintenance schedule. I believe what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to call this the maintenance schedule video, due to the fact that we are already over a half hour long. The next video I'm going to put on is the cleaning procedure, which I did go over most of it, but I will tell you exactly what tools you will need in servicing your stove. So thanks for watching. Look for our next video, the cleaning video, the Integra1 cleaning video. And I hope this helps y'all. Stay safe out there. Peace.